You may be seated. There's a listening guide inside your program. If you take a moment to fill it out, that would be great. And I'm sorry. I'm in the wrong mode. Pull out your listening guide and read along with me instead of filling anything out, all right? Yeah. We're talking about the blessing. You know, I think in all of my life, which I grew up in church and have been serving on a church staff for over 30 years, I've only heard a message on the blessing one time. Like where the entire message was defining what is the blessing. And if you've been in church for any point, even been to Sunday school as a little kid, you hear some of the stories, you knew about the blessing, right? Think about Father Abraham, and the whole thing with Isaac and Esau and Jacob. I mean, there was always this blessing that happened. So in the Old Testament, they wrote it down. And it was the idea of the father coming to and having the oldest son come to him, and he would lay his hands on his head and have this, what seemed to be almost magical, because he'd put his hands on his head and would say something. And then you read later on in the Bible, that's exactly what happened. Like the dad said something and this guy did it. I don't know. Certainly not every time a dad did that was it magical or prophetic. But because the blessing is simply speaking, again, from a more mature perspective, a dad or some kind of authority over someone, speaking what they see in a person's character. You can take anything, a quality, and you can paint it as a good thing or a bad thing, right? You see someone who talks too much? Like you go, oh, you talk too much. But then really the good way of saying it is, man, you can talk to anybody about anything or nothing. You can do it, There's some, anyway, so there's always the good and bad. And what the blessing is, they would speak this over the person's character. Again, what I love is you read it later and you go, wow, that's what happened. Well, last week we looked at a story of Jesus blessing the children. We're going to look at just the summary verse of that. I want to encourage you, if you weren't here last week, listen to last week's message, because this is a part 2 kind of message. It really helps. It'll fill in some blanks. If you listen to just today, it may not be all that clear. But last week, we really tried to define what is the blessing. And today, we're going to talk about how do you know when it's missing in someone's life? Because there's some qualities and characters you can see. But then, how do we give it? How can we give the blessing? So let's look at, if you would, Mark chapter 10, verse 16. This is what we looked at last week when Jesus called the children. Actually, parents brought the children to Jesus. And the disciples saw this. All these little kids around Jesus. They go like, whoa, 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 get away, get away. Jesus is for big people. You little kids go to your table over there. Just stay away. Don't bother him. He's got big people stuff to deal with. Right? He tried to shoo him away. And Jesus said, no, hold on. Don't ever prevent the children to come to me. And then he talks about the blessing. Here's what it says. Jesus took the children into his arms. He hugged them. And he placed his hands on their heads, and he blessed them. He blessed them. It's a model for what we should do, that we are to bless. In your notes, there's a definition of what blessing is. It means to celebrate, to speak well of someone, to applaud them, to exalt them. In the Greek, which is what most of the New Testament's written in, it's where we get the word eulogy, to eulogize, to speak a good word. In Hebrew, it means to bow. And what it means is, maybe you've been there. If you've been with some friends, they're talking about a subject, and it's something you've experienced. Like maybe they're talking about powerboat racing. Oh, and you're all excited. Powerboat racing, you just sort of come in, and you just sort of insert your story into their conversation. And that's not bowing. Bowing is when you go, oh, it's about them. It's not us telling our story or telling what we think. It's honoring to the other person. So you sort of bow down or back up out of the way. And it's where verbally we speak well of them. Not about us, but it's about the other person. So because of that, what we looked at last week was how it is so important that each of us have a blessing. Now, again, the great model is your dad's speaking it over you, but not all of us have that opportunity, right? Some of us, we grew up in a single parent home. We don't know who dad is, or we don't know where he is. For some, dad's passed away. Again, lots of things. But we still need that blessing spoken over us. And here's why. Without the blessing of our life, our soul is, and it sounds a little harsh, but just process with me. Your soul is deformed, meaning it's not the shape it should have or the function it should accomplish. So if you grew up in a home where there was a lot of anger or just wrong things spoken over you in an angry house, well, your soul has scars because of the things that were hurled at you. You know, verbally they were spoken over you. And as a kid, you know, our parents are the authority over our life, and so what they say matters. And then as we go through school, our teachers are a voice of authority. Then as we go into sports or whatever, it could be your music teacher or your football coach or whatever. People of authority, what they say matters to us. And here are what we looked at last week were 4 truths that we need to know. Number 1, you're loved and valued. Pretty much the same thing. But you're loved and valued. You need to know that whether you're just born yesterday or you're 182. You need to know that you're loved, and it has nothing to do with how you perform. You just have value because you're you. Second, or third, you need to know that you're safe. You know, as a little kid, they don't need to take on the responsibilities of the home. They don't need to be worried about the bad man or the boogeyman or, you know, just some crazy events that perhaps some of us grew up in. Our soul can't take that. And then the last one is we need to know that we have everything we need. When we know that we're loved, valued, safe, and we have everything we need for this moment, we're emotionally healthy. Now, I know I probably sound like a psychologist and all that, not so much a preacher, but here's what I want to make the connection. The blessing that is spoken over us matters. And if we don't have it, we don't live up to the potential that we should have. Matter of fact, some of us are really missing out. Matter of fact, when I said earlier, when there's anger in the home and there's just harsh things spoken, it leaves scars on us, like scar tissue. You know, we don't bend as well as we should. There's no warmth there in the relationship. For some of us, we didn't have that, but we grew up in a home that was pretty silent. When there is a silent blessing, like there's nothing said over us, we don't have scars, but we're malnourished. Our soul is starving, a huge hole. And here's what is true. When we don't have the blessing, we will always settle for a substitute. And this is where life gets real and we get in real trouble. Because we begin taking relationships or substances or behaviors or whatever. I mean, even good things can become an idol, but there's something we think we need because we try to fill a hole. And when we're chasing after other things instead of God, first of all, we're off track. But then we're missing out on what God has for us. Ponder on this. Think of your life. All the different nights you're chasing after her, him, going after this fix or this deal or this, whatever. Instead of going after God, how many opportunities have we missed out on? That God had something for us. We were so busy chasing something else. But again, now we can look back and go, oh, that was so foolish. But we forfeited it. See, God doesn't want us chasing other things. The blessing is so important because God doesn't want you to try to fill it up with substitutes. So let's look at this. We're going to look at 7 expressions of an absent blessing. Now, this is not to be judging others going, oh, I know what you are and why you're messed up and all. It's not it. It's to look at ourselves. And the truth is there's probably a little bit of all of these in us. But 7 primary expressions of a person who's missing out on the blessing. Now, again, some might just call this adolescent rebellion. And it's often where it starts and begins to show up in preteen years. But it's not adolescent rebellion most of the time. It's usually a young heart going, please notice me. Tell me you love me. Tell me I matter. because I'm trying to figure out life right now. So, 7 character categories, let's call them. Number 1, the angry. The angry. These are the people who, it doesn't matter what their circumstances are. They can be happy, but in just a flip of a switch, someone pulling out in front of them on Gulf Boulevard, boom, what's coming up, right? They're just angry. And here's why. At the core, because they've not had someone say, I love you, you're valuable, you matter. There's this underlying anger, and it's often pointed at mom and dad, but they carry that because they don't really truly believe that they can be loved or they should be loved, even though they desperately want it. And they don't believe that just because it's never been given to them. It's always been withheld, at least from their perspective. So they're angry. Okay, next, what's number 2? The detached. Okay, these are the people who, they just figure it out pretty quick. When I try to be myself and be real and share, whatever's happening with mommy and daddy or teachers or brothers and sisters, I get rejected. I get hurt. It comes back to bite me. Well, what we do is we're like, woo, I'm backing off. I'm going to detach emotionally, disconnect, withdraw. Because, again, we can learn pretty quick that relationships hurt. So, again, if deep down every soul needs to know they're loved, valued, safe, and they have everything they have, and we're not getting that, we soon learn, you know what? I don't need to mess with people. I can go entertain myself with Xbox or whatever the toy is of that time. So, number 3, the driven. These are easy people to recognize, but yet celebrated too in our culture. People who get a lot of things done. You know them, don't you? Man, they got 18 different jobs, they're always making things happy. Now we can go, wow, you're amazing. You are like high D, woo, highly driven. But here's the truth. A lot of people that have this, and again, I don't know statistics, but I know a lot of them, you know why they're doing it? Not because of some God-given dream, but because they never got the blessing when they were growing up. So they think the only way to get any kind of attention or to feel value or loved or appreciated or get any kind of attention, I gotta have a big party. I gotta do a big something so people notice. Now here's a sad thing. If this is you or you know something like that, here's the thing. They live under the illusion that a great performance equals satisfaction, that they'll feel good about themselves. Thing is, it's a mirage. So they do this great event, maybe at work or at home or whatever, private life. They do something really great, and you know what happens? They don't feel good about it. They're already looking at, what do I need to do next? It's the illusion that it'll satisfy. And so they just go from one big thing to one big thing to one big thing, and how can I outdo last time and this? And, again, it's a horrible way to live. So the angry, the detached, the driven. S, the seduced. That's the next one, the seduced. These are people who, because there's the hole, they're looking for something to fill it. They don't have the blessing. They don't feel valued. Don't really know if they're loved. And so instead, trying to fill it with a relationship, you know what? They fill it up with substance or behaviors. These people are they're prone to addiction. We say some people just have a personality that's more easily addicted. Yep, it can be chemical. Some of it's also environmental. It's because we're trying to fill the hole. And for some, what we think is, you know what? If I can't fill it with something, I'm going to at least try to cover the pain of not having it. So we just stay high. Or we just stay, again, chasing something. And again, it's an illusion. But this is where it can be really dangerous for us because we're easily seduced and can get into addiction. Matter of fact, there's been studies that show that for those that are really hooked in gambling, over 90% come from homes where they characterize it as loneliness and rejection. That was their childhood. Now, I'm not picking on gambling. There's a whole lot of things we could put in there. But again, We try to add a substitute because there's a hole. We're going to go after it. The number 5th category is the seekers. These are the people always searching for intimacy, yet never content. Deep down, I think this is me, to be honest, if I can be really honest. I think growing up in my mess, this is probably how more me, if I looking at myself. Easily seduced. If you don't get the thing that you're loved and all this, you try to get it from someone. Now, these are great people to date, by the way, okay? Now, they don't really believe deep down that they're lovable, but they're wonderful to date because here's what they do. Once they connect with someone, man, they're going to do everything to win you over. Even when you've already won over, but the courtship is awesome because they're always fixing things and doing things and buying things and greeting things and surprising you. And ladies, these are great people to date. But then when you get married, guess what? They sort of go back to where they were. It's like once they've captured you or they're in this relationship, they think, I don't really deserve to be loved because that's at the core of who they are. That's the hole that they have. So, again, great people to date, horrible people to marry. The problem is you don't know until you're married. Oh, well. And then don't discard them. We don't teach that. So, all right. Again, these are people who often struggle with God's unchanging love for them because, again, they never heard it. They never embraced it or received it. Okay, number 6, the 6th category, the shattered. These are the people, they're just so hurt, and for whatever, they're just so empty that their life is full of panic and fear and anxiety and paranoia. And there's just such a great emptiness there and a depth of void. They're just sort of stuck there. And you know what? Listen, you come alongside of them. I mean, we need to bless them. But these are people, it's not like you fix their circumstances and they're fine. This is where perhaps the longest, it just takes time to dig out of this hole. But you can get out. But you yourself are probably not the Savior for them. Just understand that, okay? So, let's go into the last one, the smotherers. These are pretty easy to recognize. These are the people that there's such a hole there. Whenever anyone shows them attention or affection, they are all over it. These are the people that you just said hello to them, and they don't stop following you around. They're everywhere. Every time you turn around, there they are, and they're always here, and they're there to help, and they're all over. They're always with you. And again, don't think of them bad. There's just a hole there that they're trying to fill. And these are the people that can, they just smother you. A lot of times they can be so zealous and, I don't want to say aggressive, but so constant that they actually drive away the person they're trying to relate to. It just be too much, So, there are 7 categories right there of people that they don't have the blessing. Now, let's make a promise. We're not going to psychoanalyze everyone and all this and try to, don't go around going, you're number 4. I know it. All right, so no pointing or texting anything, Number 3, huh? But just to understand how it lives out. So we need the blessing. This is what every child needs. It's what every teenager needs. It's what every young adult needs. It's what every old person needs. That's you and me. We need the blessing. And the more that we understand that we are loved and valued, we are safe, and we have everything we need for the moment. We're great. That's why Jesus says, don't worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow will take care of itself. Worry about today. He's saying, stay in the moment. You have everything you need right now. Relax, breathe. So, Let me stick to my notes, or else we'll just get in trouble, and I don't want to do that. Bottom line, we have to receive the blessing, and if we don't, we're going to settle for a substitute. Substitutes never satisfy. So how do we give the blessing? How do we give it? Here's 4 ways to do it. Number 1, touch. Touch is always a part of the blessing, whether you read a biblical account or earlier account or later accounts, I guess, in culture. You know, whenever there's some kind of ceremony of transferring of authority or power or acceptance, there's always touch involved. You know, even to meet someone, you shake their hand. If you're going to be knighted, you know, and you kneel and they take the sword, they touch you with the sword. Not too hard, but they touch you, right? There's always touch involved. Here, you know, if you did a good play, you're part of the team, you high five. I mean, that's all sorts of things. There's always touch involved. And touch is needed. Now, let me say this. God made us this way. So let's just put that as part of the filter here. God made us to be touched. You, all by yourself, have 5 million touch receptors. You know what they're ready to receive? Touch, yeah, brilliant. Brilliant. Touch. Like they're ready. You got to be touched. God made us this way. And here's, again, just physical reasons. Perhaps if you can remember the days of early biology or something, you've heard of hemoglobin, right? That's the stuff that makes your blood turn red. It gives you the red pigment. Okay, when that's happening, because the hemoglobin brings oxygen to your organs and skin and those kind of things, right? Which skin is an organ, I know. But for those of us who are lay people, your skin too. So that's the connection to touch. And when we get touched, do you know your hemoglobin levels go up? Well, big whoop. What does that mean? I'm more red than blue on the inside? I don't know. But here's what I do know. You feel more energized. You feel better when you're touched. Matter of fact, it lowers your blood pressure. Touch, just physically alone, you know, can actually bring some healing to us. It's amazing. And God made us this way to be touched. So, man, anyway, it matters. Now, emotionally, what happens when we touch? We're celebrating acceptance. I embrace you. I'm bringing you in. I'm giving you respect. Even if I just met you and we shake hands, I'm at least hello. I'm extending myself. I'm showing you respect. When we hug, we're bringing in, we're communicating you're important, you're valuable, all these things. You're safe, right? All the truths that we need to know. It happens because of touch. That's one of the best ways we communicate. Now, again, let me just be clear. I mean appropriate touch, safe touch, because we all need to be touched. Because of our background, some of us really need to be touched. Because of some others, because of their background, they don't need to be touched. It's tough to be touched. So we respect each other's boundaries, right? But we need to touch. So we need to have like a touching section. I thought this could be touching and this could not. But I thought, no, that's a horrible picture of a church, you know? So if you don't like to be touched, sit in the parlor or the bathroom, all right? Go somewhere. Now, touch is important. I think the home should be the number one touchy place ever. And here's let me get real here with you. My daughter, she's 16. She does not want to be touched. That is not a love language to her. Now, she'll love to go shopping, okay? But don't touch me while we go shopping, right? And so I'm dad, and I do this. She's like, you know. And she's not being mean. She just, for whatever reason, her hemoglobin levels are fine, all right? But it dawned on me, I need to be persistent more because she needs to know what right touching is. Because at some point, someone's going to try to push those boundaries. Daddy needs to touch her. I need to have my arm around her. I need to, you know, even when her friends are, I just need to pull her in close and just say, I love you, and then let her go. Because it's important. We need to know what that means, what safe touching is. And again, it's just a huge part of part of really giving the blessing. As the home should be the number one touchy place, I think the church should be number two. It's part of the blessing. The second way to bless is through spoken words. Our words carry power. What we say matters, especially to those who are under us, like if they're your children or again, the more important you are in a person's life, the more weight your words have. And imagine if you're a child and every time your parents introduce you to their friends, they say, oh, this is so-and-so. This is the shy one. What does that do to you? You can go, no, I'm not, and act out. But at some point, you're just going to embrace it because you've heard it and heard it and heard it. What if you say, oh, this is a clumsy one? Or if you heard, don't be so stupid. Those words matter. The words spoken of over us steer the direction of our lives. And imagine if, now some of you were probably raised in amazing homes. Most of us were not. But imagine if you grow up and all you heard all your life was from your mom. From the earliest age, you can say, oh, you have so much potential. I can't wait to see what God's going to do in your life. What if you heard, others may say that you're weak, but I see in you, you're not weak. You have such great compassion. You care for others. You're not selfish. You don't go and try to get at things to do it your way. You're such a good friend. You know what? Your friends are lucky to have you. Your wife or your husband in the future, they're going to be so lucky to have you as their spouse. It's a different way to say the same thing. For some, instead of saying they're shy, you can say, I know that you're just very thoughtful with your words. You know that words matter, and so you only say after you've really given some thought to that. Boy, you may not say a lot of things, but when you do, they're certainly worth listening to. The words spoken over us have great power. So it's important what we say. And also be aware that how powerful the absence of our words are. Now you might be sitting in here going, look, I'm just a snowbird. I'm on vacation. My kids are in Iowa with snow up to their eyeballs. They're okay. Your kids need your blessing. If they're alive, they still need your blessing. It's not an age thing. It's a relationship thing. Number 3, the third way to give the blessing is you need to pronounce the high value of a person. See, last week I said, don't say that your nails look good. And then my wife's like, we got people in the church who do nails, so I don't want to offend you, okay? What I was trying to point out is when we give the blessing, a verbal blessing, don't say, oh, I love your dress, or your hair looks great, because that's stuff. What happens if their hair burns off at the fire grill later on today? Oh, man, you were a nice person, sorry, That expired. The blessing is always about the character, the quality of a person, not about what they have, things, or what they look like. It's about them. Because if you're saying, there's a difference between a compliment and a blessing. And so just keep that straight, because for number 3 here, where it says, you pronounce the high value of a person, you're talking about them. And it's important timing. What if you grew up in a house, or, again, someone else who's important in your life, the only time they say something positive about you is when you get first place, or when you get the head singing of the school play, or you get straight A's, or you secure that new client. You made the new project happen. Whenever there's only blessings or compliments or good things said about us, when we do good things, our soul will begin to associate feeling good and performance. And again, it's nice to acknowledge good performance, but the blessing is not about your performance. It's about you have value just how you are. You are valuable. That's what we see from Scripture. And it has nothing to do with our performance. That's why, when we talk about salvation and God's grace for us, it has nothing to do with how good we are, because we're not that good. There's always someone better. Whatever standard you put up, you're not going to win first place probably. But that's not how God grades us. It's you're valuable now. Again, that's the blessing he has. All right, let's roll on here. Number 4. Fourth part of giving a blessing is to have an active commitment. So there's touch. It's spoken words, but it's also the right words to say. But then there's also action connected to it. Number 4 here, and it comes from James chapter 2, verses 15 through 16. And you've probably heard this passage before. It says, suppose a brother or sister, you see a brother or sister, a friend, who needs food and clothing. You say, well, goodbye. God bless you. Stay warm and eat well. Have a good day. But then you don't give that person any food or clothing. What good does that do? See, words are not enough. Touch is a part of it. Words are a part of it, certainly the right kind of words. But there must be an active commitment to be a part of the blessing. Your son says, Daddy, let's play baseball. Let's play baseball. And you make a promise. You know what? Tomorrow, I can't now, but tomorrow we'll go play catch. Tomorrow comes. Now you don't play catch. What does that mean to your blessing? It's not, our words matter, and our actions verify whether our words can be trusted. That's what James is pointing out here. So, here's what this means. Some of you have kids. You got grandkids. You need to bless them. Some of us, we have neighbors we need to bless. We've not been blessing them. For some, we got people in our very own home we need to bless. So what does that mean? Touch them in a good way. Touch them. Speak the words, but speak the right words over their character. And you speak of the potential, what you see in them. And then back it up with whatever way the situation brings. If we did this in some of our relationships, man, it would change them. For some of us, we would be changed if we could really, truly receive these truths from God. I share with you a little bit. I was a guy, for whatever reason, I just felt like God really doesn't really love me. I could sing the song all day long. Jesus loves me, and I could give you Bible verses. And I was a good church boy. But I wasn't so sure Jesus loved me. Why? Because I'm Jeff. I'm pretty messy. Like, I get in trouble at school. I'm always dirty. I'm a little boy. I don't know. And when I realized, again, as the Lord grows us, and begin to realize, I'm loved. It changes how I act. Matter of fact, it changes how I look at other people. Instead of thinking, oh, they're just putting up with me, or they're not telling me the truth, I'm way more secure. I don't have anxiety. I don't have paranoia. The more that we know we're loved and valued, we're safe, we have everything we need, it's a good day. God grows us. Our relationships are better. We're not freaking out on people. We're not suspicious of people. We're not running away from people. We're not trying to substitute things for people. It's great. That's why I want to encourage you. What does God say about you? Parents, you're the mouthpiece. But ultimately, well, this leads to our next thing in our notes. 2 things to know. Requirements to receive the blessing is understand ultimately God is the one who holds the blessing. It's God who can only bless us. Second, you got to receive it. There's some good people who've grown up in great homes. They were told all day long, you're loved, you're valued, you're safe, you have everything you need. And they still did their own thing, still ran away. It's no guarantee. But here's the thing. We have to receive it. You're in a place now, for some of you, you couldn't receive this years ago, but you can now. You're in the right place emotionally, maturity. You can receive the fullness of God's blessing and truth over you. Would you like to do that? Let's do it. Bow your heads, please. What I'd like to do, well, hang on. I'm going to show you. This is a great picture. Look at this picture on the screen. Isn't that a great picture? That's a picture of the blessing. If you can see, it's a mama bird or something like that, taking care of 2 little guys, covering them. That's a picture of God's blessing in our life. Those little guys, it's a scary world to them. But here's what they know right now. They're loved and they're valued. Matter of fact, they're safe. And they have everything they need in this moment. They have no need. That's what God wants us to experience. Not in a moment, but day by day as we walk with Him. Please bow your heads.